the Democrats is her response to that initial, these people are in an alternate universe. She says that there was $350 million in the American Rescue Plan, and the Washington Post gave it 3 Pinocchios when she said that money could have gone to police and not one Republican voted for it. Here's your response to that. Your response to that is that money wasn't earmarked for police. It could have been used for any one of a number of things. And police were not specifically mandated to receive that money. That's number one. Number two, what we've got now is we've got Merrick Garland is coming to New York City, I understand, tomorrow, along with the Governor Hochul and the president. And they're all going to come in and say, we're going to take care of you all. We're going to protect you all. Nonsense. If you remember, Merrick Garland is the guy who came out and said, yeah, those parents are domestic terrorists. Here, FBI, I'm going to sick you after those domestic terrorist parents. Then you've got the Hochul who says, yeah, the DA's bragged, the new prosecutor is not going to be tough on crime. She says, yeah, you've got to be tough on crime. But then she goes wink, wink to her legislative friends in Albany. No, we're not going to change any of the bail laws. So we're going to let them out loose. So the Democrats want them out. That's part of their agenda.
If they're coming tomorrow, Geraldo, they will see that the second funeral for the NYPD officer Mora, he will be laid to rest tomorrow, and that funeral will happen around, I think it starts at 10 a.m. And then Thursday, the president is coming here. I guess he says he wants to deal with gun issues. He'll be in an appearance with Eric Adams, who's the new mayor. Do you think that Eric Adams will say something to him about the progressive prosecutors?
I know that Eric Adams likes so fast. Also try it for cough, mucus, and congestion. Joining us now is former Tennessee Congressman and Fox News contributor Harold Ford Jr. Thank you for joining us, Congressman. I am not going to ask you to defend policies that I don't think you agree with. So let me ask you about the politics, the perception. It does seem the Biden administration has been slow to appreciate how Americans feel about this issue of crime, but I will give you a chance to tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, first off, happy Sunday. Thanks for having me on. I do think there's a perception challenge that my party has around this issue. I think we are fortunate to have a very powerful and significant voice in Eric Adams here in my home city of New York, where I live, and where my kids go to school. I think him being here, the president being here earlier last week, was a positive thing, not only for him politically, but I think substantively. Now, we should be honest about this. The extremes on both sides in each of our parties, unfortunately, dominate and frankly are guiding too much of the conversation. Eric Adams' presence is a welcome one and a refreshing one, because I'm hoping he can push through this. But you look at the left, the defunding of the police, the bail reform laws that frankly is well-intentioned as they may have been to ensure that nonviolent offenders didn't spend more time in jail for something that, had they even been convicted of, they may not have spent that much time in, is no excuse for not reforming those laws in light of what we're dealing with now. Defunding the police is one of the dumbest ideas and dumbest political reactions I've heard in the last 25 years. And on the right, whenever we have gun violence and we talk about ghost guns, some on the right are unwilling to even consider. I hear your point, and I agree with you. We should prosecute and use the laws on the books, but we should be serious about this ghost gun thing, I think, a little more than we are. So you have this negligence being practiced on both sides. But we should be clear also, Democrats are the ones who will face the greater political liability heading into an election season because of the list of DAs, the list of things that the administration is or is not doing. I do think that, again, earlier last week was a positive for the administration, but they now have got to act on it. Some of our New York press here didn't think it was that big of a deal, the president coming. I think the New York Post said blah, blah, blah was their headline. But at least there was a visit. And Eric Adams is certainly not going to back down. He, in many ways, is the face of the Democratic Party when it comes to how we're going to address crime and the additional methods, and for that matter, the reforms we're going to make to some of the things that some in our party have been saying for some time around crime.
All right, Congressman, the president did come and he did talk about ghost guns, and for people who are not steeped in federal firearms, that's a gun that's not traceable, either doesn't have a serial number or it's been obliterated, makes it very hard to prosecute it. When I was in the House, all of the rage was about closing the gun show loophole. And my response is, okay, let's get tough on ghost guns, let's close the gun show loophole. How many killings would that stop? I mean, if ghost guns aren't being used in the crimes, then you're talking about something that is not the root of the problem. Why won't Biden talk? Why won't he get tough on progressive prosecutors? Why won't he get tough on the DA in Los Angeles? That's, from a messaging standpoint, that's my question.
I don't have a good answer to that question, Trey. I think one of the things that if I were in that White House, we'd have FBI task forces in Chicago and Los Angeles and San Francisco, here in New York as well, with men and women on the ground helping the police, tracking these things and providing them with whatever resources they may need. And that should be happening. Look, you know, we go back and forth about the guns and the ghost guns and this and that, but one thing is clear. That the 2 officers that were killed here last week, that was a ghost gun that had been bought in Philly, that was used by that man that they went into the house to because his mom had called the police on him. So I hear you, and I hope that the messaging in my party, if we don't get it right, Trey, we're not gonna fare well in this election cycle. It's a number 2 issue on people's minds, but I think it's the number 1 issue in households all across the country.
Congressman, I hope he calls you. He'll find a really nice guy and a reasonable voice on the other end of the phone if the president calls you. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday night.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
The idea that immigrants come over here and they don't know anything and they're dragging us down, because we all come from immigrants, including you, Tommy Ladd. She talks about low skills. What exactly are her skills?
Her second great-grandmother had been here for 10 years, yet spoke no English. Oh my gosh. 1930 census says Tommy's 3 times great-grandmother had been here for 41 years and still spoke German. She didn't speak English either. She doesn't even know her own history. She certainly doesn't know this country's history.
Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren is here to respond to that. So, Tommy, what led to that bashing on The View?
Well, there is a woman over the weekend who took it upon herself to research my family history in hopes of digging up some kind of a gotcha moment, a gotcha angle to validate illegal immigration and open borders. And what she found was really shocking, guys. She found that my family who came here in the 1800s from Norway and Germany, that they spoke Norwegian and German. And really what she did is prove that my family came here legally. But what she was hoping to do was try to call me a hypocrite for believing in merit-based immigration. Again, she failed miserably. But this really isn't what she calls resistance genealogy. It's just another indication of Trump derangement syndrome. But I really am happy, though, that she has such a fascination with my family history, and I'm hoping that she will take on Elizabeth Warren's next.
Wow, that would be very interesting. Tommy, a couple of things. They do not understand the conversations about illegal immigration and immigration. One group of people signs the guest book and says, I'd like to stay, here's my credentials. The other, they might both be fine people, just as there's a way in and there's a wrong way in. And for them to go that deep in your background, you have gotten under their skin to a level I didn't think was possible. What is it about you that bothers them so much?
Well, it's not just me. It's anybody who advocates for merit-based immigration or has an issue with open borders. And again, just like you said, they don't seem to understand that we on the right believe in immigration. We understand that we are a nation of immigrants, and I am proud of my heritage. However, I do believe that the immigration crisis of today is apples to oranges from what it was in the 1800s when immigrants came to this country legally, were documented, worked for themselves, asked for nothing, and built a life and a family. That has nothing to do with the illegal immigration crisis of today that we must deal with. But they don't want to acknowledge that whatsoever.
Did you provide them with DNA, 23andMe? Because I cannot believe the detail on your background that they were able to get.
Well, I don't have to. She did all the research for me, so I'm sure my family is very appreciative.
What about Joy saying, though, what are your skills? It's beyond research. It is personal. It is mean.
Well, of course, this is classical Joy Behar, but I would like to ask Joy Behar what her skills are, because perhaps we could swap stories. I know I watch Joy, and she seems like a highly skilled lady, but for her to attack me, that's really interesting. Those in glass houses should not throw stones.
Meanwhile, one of the things, the New York Times has this headline: breaking up immigrant families. This also has to do with immigration. A look at the latest border tactic. Clearly, as we have heard from the Attorney General of the United States, Tommy, this administration is actually going to be enforcing our immigration laws, where during the Obama years, not so much.
Well, during the Obama years, it was a cattle call to come into this nation illegally. And furthermore, this is, again, the left's attempt at emotional blackmail. And I would just like to state, I don't know if they understand this or not, but if you don't want your family to be broken up when you cross the border illegally, here's an idea. Don't cross the border illegally. Then your family will surely stay together. I don't know why the left can't think of this, but they would rather try to tell us that we hate families, we want to break up families, we're horrible, we're despicable. No, we want to enforce federal immigration law, which is why it exists in the first place. But again, the left cannot seem to understand this concept.
Well, in the United States, it's trying to enforce our border regulations down south. Over the last couple of years, it hasn't been so much. And then the news out of Israel yesterday was the fact that the Israelis were protecting their border, and the Palestinians understood that there could be trouble, but nonetheless, their leaders said, go ahead, breach the border, climb over the wall, because the Israeli soldiers have run away.
Well, as we've seen, Israel clearly doesn't play around, but every nation has the right to enforce their border. Every nation has a right to protect its citizens. I've said it before. You don't lock your door because you hate the people outside. You lock it because you believe in protecting the people inside. That is why we have a border. But the left would rather us have open borders. Again, that's a threat to our safety and security, and we that believe in legal immigration and we that believe in border enforcement will never stand for that, ever.
So, Tommy, on behalf of the people of Norway and Germany, we thank you for your appearance this morning. Together, you've become a fine human being.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys. Still waiting for Elizabeth Warren's genealogy, though. Maybe she'll work on that one next.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe it'll be a talking point today on The View.
Thanks, Tommy.
To talk to Jesus. It's another thing when Jesus talks to you.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's different. That's called mental illness, if I'm not correct. My question is, can he talk to Mary Magdalene without his wife in the room?
It's another thing when Jesus talks to you. That's called mental illness. That was Joy Behar yesterday on The View. They were responding to a clip from Omarosa, where she was talking about her time at the White House, and she said that Mike Pence said Jesus tells him to say things, and that's what precipitated that conversation.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn about Keep Your Worldly Clips of The View, because we're making it relevant again. I like life when for 5 years we ignored The View.
You aren't interested in the crazy things they say to America?
Not really, because we give them ratings and they stay on television.
Well, let's ask Tommy. Tommy Lahren, she's a Fox News contributor. She's been following this story. We wanted to have you on to get your opinion about it. What do you think about Joy Behar mocking the vice president for his Christian faith?
Well, who is she to judge how often our vice president should speak to his Lord and Savior? Who is she to mock anyone for their faith? These people are really, really amazing to me because they preach day in and day out about tolerance and love. Tolerance and love for everyone except conservative Christians. And then they can mock you and it's funny and you're something that they can use for their jokes around the table and they can all cackle about it. It's really disgusting, not surprising, but disgusting.
If you want Joy Behar to be quiet, just say that maybe someone is speaking to Allah and Allah talks back. She would not be mocking that.
No, of course not. And that's exactly the thing with these ladies, is that in the next segment, they'll probably talk about how horrible our president and our vice president is, but in the segment prior to that, they mock Christians. Again, they live in a world where men can be women, women can be men, but if you're a conservative Christian, you have a mental illness. There's something wrong with the women at that table, for sure.
You know, I just felt sorry for her. As a Christian, obviously she doesn't know Christ. She doesn't know the joy and the love that he provides to so many people. And so it just made me feel sorry for her.
I think she's Jewish, isn't she?
And Meghan McCain said Jesus speaks to her every morning. So you got both sides of it.
Joy Behar, not Jewish, according to Toba.
Okay.
Right.
Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about one high school. And Tommy, they wanted to ban the national anthem from pep rallies because they say that the third verse of the Star Spangled Banner is racist.
Well, again, I hope that Colin Kaepernick and his friends are mighty proud of themselves because they created this trend and it continues onward. And now it's touched high schools, it's touched elementary schools, it's touched sports teams, it's touched every corner of this nation. And it's really sad. Since when did the national anthem become a partisan thing? Since when did it become a racist thing? This is something that all Americans used to stand for, put their hands over their hearts, and believe in. This was something that as Americans united us. And once again, we've got certain individuals in this country that have made it mainstream to disrespect the country, disrespect the flag, disrespect the anthem. And again, I don't think that these children at a young age, I don't think that they understand the ramifications of that. I don't think they understand how it feels to be a veteran or a police officer or someone that flag means so much to. I don't think they understand the disrespect. And that's what's really sad about it, is they're doing it and they don't understand what it really means to others.
Well, if they're not going to play the national anthem as a song at the beginning, what song should they play? That's the question.
Right. A lot of people like God Bless America bad, but I don't think they're looking to substitute that. This letter's from the student body president. Says, we understand that this third verse is not included when the anthem is performed, but still, what does this tell us? This verse translated finds joy in the killing of African Americans. To think that our national anthem once had the words slave and land of the free in the same sentence leaves me speechless. Now let's talk about something that we're reporting on way too much, and that is the shooting of a police officer. 2 over the weekend in Ohio, and then we lost a commander in Chicago, Commander Paul Bauer. Last year at this time, we had 5 officers dead. That's 5 too many. But now we're up to 11. What is going on?
Well, the war on cops is certainly real, but I think beyond that, it's up to us to make it mainstream to discuss the lives of these police officers, to honor them, because if we remember them, we remember their memory, their legacy can truly live on. So beyond this, beyond talking about how sad it is and the statistics and how deadly even the year 2016, 2017 was for law enforcement, I think moving forward, it's up to us. And it's up
So for the last 15 years, you've had local, state, and military, National Guard military, have weekly and bi-weekly and monthly meetings where they all meet together for, this has all been going on since 2001, 2002, probably the beginning of 2002, I believe. September, October, November, December, yeah, since the beginning of 2002, that's been going on. And everybody did talk about school shootings, school violence. I don't care what city, town, even if you've never had any problems, whatever. You got a military style police force now. That's all been beefed up over the last 30 years. Everybody against everybody. It's not just police against citizen. It's not just black against white. It's tall against short. It's fat against skinny. It's you know, it's everything. Cat against dog. It's everybody. Everybody's divided, and that's part of the division, was to do that. And then eventually the military will take over the police, and we're already right there. We're already there because we already turned the police into military. So if our police have been militarized, then they don't have to get rid of the cops in order to bring in the military. They did it in reverse. They told us that's what they were going to do, but in reality, they just militarized the police. So therefore, the police now just will be wearing a different badge when all the next part of their plan goes through. everybody will get updated. Their uniforms will probably change more to match military, and then everybody will be military. You know, watch it. You can just watch it happen. It happens in like slow motion. This fucking computer. I should have restarted the fucking thing.
Where she flubbed something big. This is embarrassing now.
Dan, let me just tell you, that's not the only thing she's talking about. I mean, she clearly is pointing out some of the weaknesses of the GOP. She tweeted that the GOP is weak on fighting for working class Americans, weak on crime, weak on equal rights, weak on national security, weak on rejecting racism, weak on moral courage, weak on family values. So, she says, hey, look, this is the problem with the Republican Party. What say you?
Yeah, that's just a genius. We're weak on borders. We want a border wall. That'll definitely weaken up the border. Weaken on family values. That's a fascinating new twist. Griff, is she just making this up? I mean, seriously, she may need an intervention after that tweet right here. That is insane. Why would you even write that? She doesn't even understand basic facts, by the way. That when she says the thing about fair share, the top 1% of earners pay 40% of income taxes. Think federal income taxes. Think about that. 1 out of 100 people working their butts off out there is paying 40 cents of every dollar. The top 20% of earners are paying up 70 to 80%. Now, by the way, new rules on talking about the economy since Trump is in office, and I want to thank
now he's being a little more realistic because he's saying earners. So the earners, he's saying, depending on what tax bracket you break, if you own property, then you can write everything off. Everything becomes a tax write-off. Your car, your gasoline, your lunches, your food. You can write most of your life expenses off on your taxes. So it's higher earners, what he's calling higher earners, are usually investors. They usually own real estate. They usually have ownership of more things. Well, at least what they think is ownership. But in reality, everybody that owns a home doesn't really own their home. What the fuck is going on with this thing? You don't really own a home. It just says copy of title, copy of deed. You don't really own your car. Whoever the manufacturer of your vehicle is, they really own your car. But nobody wants to face that either. I gotta fix this. Hold on.
I'm proud. I earned my money, and I'm proud of it. And new rules. I'm not apologizing anymore.
Send your money fairy up here.
Yeah.
Use her for a little while.
Use the yacht for a little while. Dan, good to see you this morning.
You too.
Cranky pated.
Like kale, coconut water, and crossover fanny packs. It's amazing how a thing once deemed evil can suddenly become acceptable. I guess it's time for...
And now, the Greg Gutfeld Show presents... Only When You're a Democrat!
I wonder, did you say it is not kids in cages?
You said it is not kids in cages. We've seen some photos now of containers. Is there a better description? Is it kids in containers instead of kids in cages? What is the White House's description of this facility?
Well, let me give a broader description of what's happening here. We have a number of unaccompanied minors, children who are coming into the country without their families.
What? So now it's no longer kids in cages separated from their parents. It's teens in facilities traveling alone, like backpacking through Europe. Yeah, now they admit it was never about tearing kids from their mom and dads, just protecting them from strangers. So now they discover nuance. Oh my, immigration is actually hard, and this border stuff is harder. We could really use a wall, Ubby. Well, that was close. I was waiting for Jen to say, but Peter, we made sure it's women putting kids in cages. Sorry, facilities. Remember that?
What is President Biden doing for my small business? First and foremost, he nominated a woman to lead the Small Business Administration who formerly worked there.
Yeah, because gender matters more than competence. I wonder if it goes over well in her free time.
Hello, have you been in contact with anybody suspected to have coronavirus in the past 14 days?
Well, as you know, Joe Biden appointed me, and I am a woman, so he, does appoint women.
It's a yes or no question.
It doesn't always have to be a yes or no answer, John.
It's Steve.
Just because I am a woman, that does not mean I need you to mansplain your name to me. So we appreciate your work, but the White House is going a different direction with the kitchen staff.
Why?
Well, it is absolutely crucial to President Biden that every person in his kitchen is a woman. He wants all of his sandwiches to be made by women. Maybe your wife could apply.
She's a lawyer.
That's okay. If she is a woman, then she belongs in the kitchen.
Isn't that sexist?
Wow, have you been reading the story about the woman who killed her husband in his sleep? It's crazy.
Well, to me, what is crazy is that it's 2021, but you don't seem to understand that a woman can do anything a man can do.
It says here that his skull was shattered.
Well, you know what else was shattered? The glass ceiling, right? Murder is not just for men anymore, and that's something that President Biden takes very seriously.
Of course, everything bad under Trump became everything awesome under Biden because new Democratic management means new names and new perspectives. Unemployment isn't so bad, it's family time. Rising crime, it's part of the equitable redistribution. Children in cages, really, it's just a camp out for needy kids. And look at the vaccines. Under Trump, who was telling you not to take them?
Let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
I would not trust Donald Trump, and it would have to be a credible source of information that talks about the efficacy and the reliability of whatever he's talking about. I will not take his word for it.
And yet, like a robotic jukebox, she's changed her tune.
I promise you, and I am telling you, this vaccine is safe, and it will save your life and the lives of your family and your community, and we have it within our power to actually do that. So get your vaccination when it is your turn. It will save your life.
I was skeptical about the vaccine, but you turned me around.
Why was he skeptical in the first place? Her! It's amazing what happens when you have to be the adult in the room, but when you're with Sharpton, who's left? But the Dems always have the advantage, with the media being their in-house or out-house PR squad. I wonder how Joe's handling this.
And now, President Biden on words.
It's all about words, man. Change the word, you change the policy. You say cages, I say containers. You say containers, I say cantinas. That's right. I learned about words from Barack Obama when I was his vice principal. We're going to take these kids, we're going to move them from CPB to HHS. Then we're going to sit back and watch CNN and show us a little TLC. You down with OPP? Oh, you know me, Uncle Joe. Text Joe to naughtybynature.gov.
Of course, he's our president, but you wouldn't know it if you watched those other late-night shows.
He's still their president.
Remember back in 2019 when Donald Trump met Kim Jong-un in Vietnam? They had a summit there. Well, according to a former national security official, after the summit, Trump offered to give Kim a ride home on Air Force One.
But old Dolt 45 is not out of the woods yet, because today the Supreme Court denied his final bid to block the release of his tax returns.
Personally trying to spread the disease to as many people as you can, like President Outbreak monkeys.
They're like the slumps who never got over not going to the prom. So they relive it every day. Or maybe they just hire lazy hack writers who refuse to see anything funny about the new administration. Fact is, they need Trump. And every story needs to be about Trump. They could really use a network that caters to their addictions.
You're watching ATN, all Trump news, because everything else is boring by comparison.
I'm Anderson Lemon with all Trump headlines for this minute. Tiger Woods is lucky to be alive after a serious accident in California. Woods might have lost control of the vehicle, but experts theorize climate change could have played a role. A serious existential risk Donald Trump continues to deny because he hates clean air, water, and birds. Speaking of birds, bird watchers have spotted a once-in-a-lifetime rare half-male, half-female cardinal, and we are sure if Donald Trump would have his way, this bird would never be able to serve in the military or be allowed to marry another half-male, half-female cardinal because he is a heartless, transphobic monster. Bruce Springsteen has been fined $450 for drinking tequila in a national park, but after having Donald Trump as president for 4 years, shouldn't all of us be allowed to drink tequila in a national park? I mean, seriously, he is really evil. My life is a wreck. I've been drinking tequila since noon, and it's all on that horrible jerk. From Washington, I'm Anderson Lemon, all Trump news.
But maybe the media is in for a hell of a wake-up call. Remember the sticker that says objects in the side view mirror are closer than they appear? Convexity offers a large field of view that makes the objects look smaller. Trump's the opposite. In that rear view mirror, the larger field of vision is telling you something else. It's the Dems that are getting smaller, not him. Because they really can't do a better job than Trump. He kind of aced the test, and they're trying not to flunk it. In that mirror, here's where Trump comes out ahead. First, North Korea. In 4 years, what Obama deemed the most pressing threat to the incoming administration now isn't even on Biden's to-do list. Why? Did Trump solve the most pressing problem before the pandemic? The vaccines. Their effectiveness is being called miraculous by the press. Who pushed that forward? Did Trump solve the most pressing problem, which is the pandemic, before Biden even emerged from the basement? The Middle East peace deals. If this happened under Obama, the CNN Washington Bureau would be drowning in its own tears of joy. The economy. If Trump hadn't ushered in such a historic economic machine, would we have endured the pandemic with unemployment dropping now to around 6% with the GDP roaring back? Could it be the tax breaks and deregulation helped? China, who saw them coming first, while DC cronies and corporations cozied up to these communists, one orange visionary was yelling, "What about our workers? What about our country?" And who exposed fake news for what it was, and shall never be the same. So, it's amazing looking back, and it's funny looking forward. One thing's for certain, the media isn't looking anywhere except at their own navels. Their next headline, belly button lint, another shameful legacy of Trump.
Period. Let's welcome tonight's guest.
She bought pillowcases for her marshmallows. Her new book, Everything Will Be Okay, comes out March 9th. It's a thriller. My co-host on The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom, Dana Perino. He's afraid of his own shadow, which is why he's always so clean-shaven. Comedian Joe Mackey. They call her Pool Q because she's skinny, blunt, and can be found leaning against the wall at most dive bars. Host of Sincerely Cat on Fox Nation, Catherine Tibb. And flatbed trucks are his bedroom slippers. My massive sidekick and host of Nuff Said on Fox Nation, Tyrus. All right, Dana. What's so special about being a woman anyway?
Well, apparently we haven't gotten the memo.
Yes, yes.
When Jen Psaki continually says, well, he appointed a woman.
Yeah.
The thing about the Small Business Administration, which was a specific question you got from that Instagram live she did, both of President Trump's SBA nominees were women.
Right.
Linda McMahon and Irma Aguirre.
That's true.
And really good. And like Linda McMahon, that was a coup.
Yes.
In order to get her to come into the administration, and to those economic numbers that you pointed to, she really focused on that, and they followed through. And then I also was reminded of, remember Mitt Romney's binder full of women?
Yes.
And he talked about how we wanted to hire more women at Bain Capital, so I had binders full of women, and people made the Democrats. I mean, he'll never hear the end of it.
Mhm.
But his whole point was that he was trying to hire women.
But that's exactly what this was. That was so crazy, right? Because she could have said in response, well, now we have Isabel Guzman here, and she's going to be great because of this qualification and because of that qualification. Use that time to really prop up the qualifications of a woman. But instead, she just said, well, we hired a woman.
So she's basically telling the country that it was just they were just checking a box.
Yes.
That's actually incredibly offensive to women, and she thinks it's a progressive thing when really it's the opposite.
And also, it's just filthy.
Yeah.
It's just filthy. Or maybe I heard it in a filthy way, Joe. I don't really know. What's your take with I'm sorry, Tyrus. I'm just telling you I'm sorry.
You're rattled because your little mind is telling you to say so many things right now.
Yes!
You
knew it, didn't you?
Oh, because I have the same little brain right now. Like, this is the one time I don't mind being skipped.
Yes! I'm sorry. I just have to, like, I'm sitting there and I can't let, like, a joke go by, but then it's like I have to joke, save me. Pick a topic. Late night hosts, Joe Biden, Ronald Reagan.
I'll stay on the current topic. You know, her saying that we hired a female Treasury Secretary instead of answering what the administration was going to do on the GameStop trading fiasco makes perfect sense, because that sounds a lot better than Janet Yellen just took $800,000 to do speeches in front of the people she now has to regulate. Because obviously, you're one of the best comedians in the world. You clear maybe $500,000 if you sell it in an arena. I'm sure that speech wasn't better than most comedians in the world, and I won't disagree that that was a bribe unless you pay me $800,000.
Yeah, it is amazing. That is a lot of money, Tyrus. A lot of money. What do you think about anything?
Well, so what's our next topic?
I want to hear it, Joe.
You know what? I'm never afraid, right? It's not a moniker here. Never afraid. Okay?
Yes.
I am afraid.
Yes.
Here's the thing. When do we draw the line with the I hired a woman? Could you imagine his next interview on whatever thing you're doing in there? So, Gutfeld, explain yourself. How do you explain your success for the Gutfeld show? I hired a black. Like, I mean, he's not super black, but he's that middle black. So, I mean, obviously there was some miscegenation in his family at some point, but we're fine with that. But he's still technically, according to Webster's dictionary, he's black.
And Webster,
Miami,
Webster, not Webster.
Yeah.
Not Webster.
Not little Webster.
Yes.
The big Webster. But for this, it was by Webster.
Yes.
So literally every time we do the show and you introduce me, you don't have to do those crazy, insulting things about my shoe size and how tall I am. You would be like, and he's black.
Yes.
And you just move on from that, because that's
exactly what she did.
It's exactly what she did. You're a woman.
That should be. We should do a show where all the introductions are just based on ethnicity.
Yes. The girl.
The girl.
I'm kind of offended by that she answered that gender mattered at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Are we supposed to be offended by that?
Yeah. Everybody's drinking from the same brainwash. It's a shame. It's a shame.
Tall, good-looking, blonde hair, blue eyes, button nose.
Montañas.
Yeah.
He's no comedian, but he does kill in nursing homes.
What comes after F? C-.
I don't even have to say anything. Look at the economy.
Didn't vote for him. I don't think he's doing great at all.
I feel like a lot of the things he's promised he hasn't delivered on quite yet.
He both thinks military, so he's not supporting the military at all.
Gas prices, they want to say it doesn't come from Biden. It does.
Big believer in our president's supposed to be a symbol of power. And, giving speeches and, talking, articulately and being able to, really get the American people behind him, and I just don't think he's been able to do that. I think how the administration has handled a lot of particular issues we've had over the past year or two have been handled very, very poorly. I like him. I give him a B+.
I didn't vote for him.
Well, I don't agree with most of the stuff he does. Seems
like a nice guy. He seems like he's getting things done. I liked him early pandemic.
We want to follow all the mandates, do what the government asks us to say, but at the end of the day, we want to go out and still live.
I think he should just own it. I don't wear a mask either most of the time, so only unless I have to. So
You have requirements for indoor and outdoor mask usage and whatnot. Just abide by your own rules.
Maybe he did. That's great. It seems disingenuous.
I don't care if he wasn't wearing his mask, but I don't want him to tell you to wear a mask or me to wear a mask.
I have no issue with taking your mask down to take a picture, but it shouldn't be something that you have to defend either.
I am of the opinion that if we're vaccinated, I have to show proof of vaccination. Everybody's negative tests are vaccinated.
I think masks work great if you wear them by yourself while you're in a vehicle, but I think when you're hanging out, I think you ought to be able to take it off and hang out with all your friends.
Foreign policy crisis, trying to reassure the world he can stop Russia from invading Ukraine. The White House warning Russian forces could take Ukraine's capital in 72 hours and are building up on the border. Biden meeting with the new German chancellor and had this message from Putin.
If Russia makes the choice to further invade Ukraine, we are jointly ready and all of NATO is ready. I think he has to realize that it would be a gigantic mistake for him to move on Ukraine. The impact on Europe and the rest of the world would be devastating, and he would pay a heavy price.
All right, Harold, I'll start with you. You've got Biden trying to convince the world that Russia will pay a heavy price if they invade the Ukraine. Do you believe me?
I do. Not only that, I thought the press conference today was mature, was serious, and I thought was direct. We have been precise. My daughter laughs when I say that word too. We have been precise in detailing what we would do if there was an invasion. We have sent troops to not invade or not stop an invasion because Ukraine is not part of NATO, so they're not a beneficiary of the kind of protection that's provided there. But we're not naive. I don't think this president nor the Chancellor of Germany is naive enough to know that the real audience we're trying to dissuade here, as much as we're the Russians, are the Chinese. And obviously in Taiwan. The Taiwan issue is different than Ukraine, but certainly So I thought what came out of this that was most impactful for Democrats, Republicans alike in the Congress, because there's some Republicans, including a senator from Missouri named Howley, who does not believe we should be in the business of protecting Ukraine. This is a larger issue, and I think sometimes politics creeps in everything, and it's certainly creeping into this with both of the parties. But I thought what he did today was one of the more serious press conferences for those who were critical, rightly so, of our exit from Afghanistan. They are putting the pieces together, Secretary Blinken, the National Security Advisor Sullivan, and obviously this president, to ensure that we don't have a misstep like we did before.
It's very interesting, Jesse, that we're so concerned about Ukraine, but we're not concerned about our own southern border. Do you see a problem there?
I see a big problem, and the country sees a problem, and the country does not care what happens in Ukraine right now. But you know who I blame for this disaster? Bill Clinton. When the Soviet Union crumbled, they left 5,000 nuclear weapons in Ukraine. That made Ukraine the third biggest nuclear power in the entire world. So what did Bill Clinton do? In 1994, he signs the Budapest Memorandum. It says, Ukraine, you're going to give all the nuclear weapons back to Russia, and in exchange, Russia's going to promise not to invade you. Now, Russia's already invaded them once with Crimea, and now they're threatening to invade them again, and they have no nuclear deterrence, and they're not even in NATO. So that might have been one of the dumbest deals we ever cut. I just think Putin right now is testing the West. They're seeing how much of Ukraine they can snatch up and what Germany's going to do because they're their biggest energy client. So we'll just wait and see. But if he does go in, that's going to be a bloody insurgency that I don't think can afford.
Well, what's interesting about this, Dana, is that we're the third biggest purchaser of oil from Russia. I mean, aren't we interested in Nord Stream 2 also?
This has been the most fascinating part of all of this, and a real education for people to look at what happens. Talk about naive. Germany thinking that you can fuel an entire economy such as theirs on wind. They are wonderful innovators, and they got rid of their nuclear programs. They have figured out a way to become completely, well, 52% of their energy comes from Russia, and they didn't think that was going to be a problem. I thought today that when Olaf is there with the president, basically saying, oh yes, we're going to have a lot of